Hydraulic cylinders are somewhat complex devices. They contain a wide range of components available in a large number of sizes, configurations, and materials. However, at the same time, hydraulic cylinders are quite simple, as the main structure always remains the same. The greatest difference between cylinders and their different types is faced when the design process is started. Since the hydraulic systems are so complex, cylinder specification can be challenging for design engineers, as each design factor influences one or more of the many other design details that need consideration for the application. The cylinder is designed by a team of design engineers, taking into account the use of the hydraulic cylinder and the environment that it will be in. This dictates materials, coatings, seals, and other specialist parts. Hydraulic cylinders usually consist of a cylinder body, piston rod, and seals. All hydraulic and sealing components may have different requirements in terms of dimensional tolerances, surface roughness, shape, and position tolerances. Since hydraulic cylinders have many different working conditions, it affects the design criteria. For example, the cylinders used in the mining and construction machines versus in forestry have other design criteria in terms of materials used. Selecting the right materials is a part of the careful design process. It is important to select the right steel material. There are 3 common materials used for hydraulic cylinders: #20 steel, #45 steel, CR40 steel. #20, that has the lowest hardness, is normally used for low-pressure hydraulic cylinders and used in places like excavators. #45 steel and CR40 are normally used in the high-pressure hydraulic cylinders with a 10,000 psi rated working pressure. As already mentioned, hydraulic cylinders consist of multiple different parts and components. After careful planning, it is time to start working the actual manufacturing process. The process starts with raw materials and their laving process into ready-to-use components. In the machining process, the raw material part is laved into a right shape. Machining as a task requires careful control and skills. After the components are ready, inspected, and washed carefully, it is time to move on to welding. Rod eyes are welded to the rod, tube ends to tubes. After every component is finalized, all the parts are collected from the warehouse, and everything is inspected. It is time to start the assembly process. In the beginning of the assembly process, every part is carefully washed and protected. The purity level of each part is inspected. Washing results and washed parts are sampled daily, and their cleanliness is checked. First, the seals are put in place for piston, cylinder head, etc., along with bearing and snap ring. The piston is to the rod. The seals are oiled around the piston and cylinder head. After the rod is assembled with every component, the whole package is ready to be installed to the tube. During every step, the cleanliness is the top priority, and at every point of the assembly, the surfaces are kept clean and properly wiped if necessary. The tube is also inspected visually, and after that the tube is attached horizontally to an installation bench. A bearing is installed, and the tube is oiled properly from inside. The rod is carefully slid inside the tube with the piston end first. The torque is set according to customer requirements. After the actual assembly of tube and rod is ready, the bearings and grease nipples are installed. After the cylinder is assembled, it is ready to be proof tested. The purpose of the testing, also known as proof test, is to ensure the safety and functionality of cylinders. The proof test is done with a pressure that is more than the actual usage pressure at the final machine, to ensure that all the joints and welds in the cylinder can take the pressure. The internal leaks can then be identified from the computer. The valves are often installed to the cylinder after the proof test. This is because after the assembly, cylinders are dry and there is air inside them. During the proof test, the cylinder is filled with pressurized oil, so cylinders must be emptied from the air. If the valves are in place, all of the air might not be able to escape from the cylinder. If pressurized oil is pumped inside a cylinder that is filled with air, it causes a major security risk and might cause a serious accident. Some valves can be used during the proof test, but in most cases not. After the proof test, all testing documents are filled. These include both Hydroline Zone and the customer's documents. Finally, the cylinders are ready for painting, and the tester also attaches protective covering to the cylinders for painting. One of the main tasks in hydraulic cylinder manufacturing is to make sure the cylinders work like they should. When the final inspection is being done, all standards are measured. After testing, the painting, coating, and polishing is done. All the cylinders have an undercoat, mid-coat, and top coat of paint. The paint is sprayed onto the body of the cylinder in order to keep it watertight and prevent it from rusting. Just like everything else, the painting and other surface treatment is always done according to customer needs. Returning a hydraulic cylinder to peak operating performance is a methodical process that requires both knowledge, experience, and sophisticated equipment. Correct processes must be followed from start to finish, and care and attention must be paid at each stage to ensure quality standards. Every cylinder leaves evidence that offers clues as to the reason for failure, which must be addressed to ensure proper function and avoid repeated failures. Lack of diligence at any point or improper handling will result in a cylinder that does not perform correctly and at best has a shorter lifespan. At worst, will fail very quickly. So with this in mind, we'd like to give you a look at our end-to-end hydraulic cylinder repair process and show you what it takes to take a cylinder that has seen better days and transform it into a like-new component with performance very close to that which it possessed when it left the factory. The repair process starts with a methodical disassembly of each cylinder, no matter how large or small. The disassembly procedure should be highly practiced. Cylinders should be correctly prepared and secured. High-quality equipment is necessary not only to cope with large cylinders, but also to ensure the disassembly process is controlled. Damage during disassembly should be avoided. Not only does it increase the cost of repair, it makes it harder to diagnose the actual cause of hydraulic cylinder failure, making it more difficult to distinguish between damage caused during disassembly and damage as a result of normal operation. Every cylinder is treated the way a forensic scientist would conduct an investigation. An experienced technician examines the failed cylinder for clues such as fractured, glazed or swelling seals, scored or asymmetrically worn piston rods, ballooned barrel tubes, or cracked welds. Referencing manufacturer's information and drawing on years of experience, the technician also measures each component with highly accurate digital and manual devices to assess cylinder condition, including bore, piston, gland and rod wear, crack detection, chrome hardness and thickness, and surface finish. Each part is checked to confirm that it is within spec for tolerances. Piston rods are ground and restored to original specifications using advanced surface engineering processes, including industrial hard chrome plating, sulfamate nickel plating, laser cladding, and high-velocity oxygen fuel spraying. Reassembly. Experienced technicians make use of the cranes and benches to reassemble each reconditioned cylinder. The same rigorous procedures and high-quality equipment is employed in reassembly to ensure correct installation of parts that must fit together very tightly. It is important to avoid damage or incorrect installation at this point, as this would severely impede performance and lead to rapid wear and failure. Maintaining cleanliness levels to prevent internal contamination. Following correct assembly, taking care not to damage or incorrectly install sensitive components such as seals and glands. Testing is extremely important to ensure that the cylinder performs to the required specifications and can develop the correct pressure without failure. An improperly machined or reassembled cylinder will be quickly discovered at this point in the process. And now let's see how the larger hydraulic machines are repaired. This is the world's largest excavator, called Rhine-Braun. It is 220 meters long, 96 meters high, and weighs 13,500 tons. They can process up to 240,000 tons of coal per day. You can see how huge it is, and so can its internal parts. Currently, its steering hydraulic cylinder is having problems. This cylinder weighs 44 tons. On-site repairs are not possible. It needs to be disassembled and transported back to the factory so it can be restored. The first step is to remove it from the machine, which is not a simple task. After being transported to the factory, this cylinder was examined in detail and disassembled. Heavy equipment must always be used to remove the cylinder. When everything was opened, the workers saw exactly the problems with this cylinder. There are too many problems that need to be checked and repaired. It took them 25 days to overhaul this cylinder, an extremely difficult and challenging task for highly skilled workers in Germany. After a long period of operation, the cylinder began to have scratches larger than allowed. The piston rings also showed signs of oil rust and needed to be replaced. The most important step is to regrind the inside of the cylinder to reach standard specifications. Next is to replace the piston head to match the specifications of the ground cylinder. All parameters must be absolutely accurate so that the piston can operate smoothly. The cylinder will then be reassembled, which is a difficult job that requires skill and precision. Heavy crane support is needed to move this giant piston. Lubricating oil is also added at this step. Each part will have a separate type of lubricating oil. Installation must be very meticulous. Errors can cause huge damage to the company. Once the parts are in place, the bolts will be tightened. Once the overhaul process is completed, the piston will be transported back to the construction site and installed on the giant excavator.